Usha! 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 If you want control and mastery of your limbs through space, particularly in the legs, look no further than the ballet. I spent years learning the secrets of the art of the dance just so you don't have to. So stick around if you want to add some class to your karate classes. One of the first moves you're going to learn in a ballet class is the tendu. This is pointing the foot. And that's all. Don't let its simplicity fool you into thinking this is easy. If you haven't worked your foot musculature in this sort of way, you will cramp, it will hurt, and it will be a workout. Nowadays, we don't have a lot of reasons to articulate through the toes and feet. We no longer have to walk on uneven surfaces to challenge the muscles of the feet. So, if you're missing that component, you must strengthen from the ground up. My hips and knees can be as strong as they want, but if I can't articulate that through the ground, then it doesn't matter. So start from your foundation and work up. So a tendu is simply pointing your foot. Now, in a ballet class, we will almost always be in a turned out position, right? This means we go this way, everything is crossed, where the insides of my thighs and feet are facing the audience. Now, originally, this was a specific intentional choice, as seating in stadiums or places where they would hold art performances did not have the raised sort of stadium seating that we have now that allows everyone, including people in the back, to see what's going on. So instead of the audience being on an incline, the stage itself was on an incline. So that meant if you had your feet facing forward, you were much more likely to fall, slip in the direction that gravity is pulling you. If you are practicing this for martial arts purposes, I recommend and encourage you to use the normal hip alignments that you will use in your personal techniques, right? So in ballet, we don't do much in the neutral sort of alignment, because everything has turned out because of a stylistic choice based on stages that are no longer the case, but we continue to uphold the tradition. Now, there are very good reasons for using the turnout. You develop a lot of these muscles on the inside and outside of the leg that are not the big, dramatic, attention-getting quads and hamstrings, right? These are ad and abductor muscles, together and out. Things that you probably don't work in the gym, or even in your martial arts classes. So I will be demonstrating from turnout, but modify this for your specific needs. So the tendu, I'm going to lengthen out, keeping my legs straight the entire time in front of me, letting the toes come up last. So when I return, toes go down first, the ball of the foot. I'm still reaching the heel and the inside thigh forward as I pull back. So again, I push out. The heel does not come up until it must. The ball of the foot does not come up until it must, and the toes do not come up until they must. And that is your point. Here. And I pull back, and I'm stretching this foot back as I retract. And we do that to the front, to the side, and to the back. So in a ballet context, it looks like this. Front, 2. I'm returning to 5th position, is what we call it. 3. Now I go to the side, and I go in line with my hip sockets. I do not have 180 degrees of turnout, so I will not perform 180 degrees. I go off to the side that my hip sockets allow. And I'm doing the same thing here. Reaching, heel comes up only as it has to. The ball of the foot is still pushing through the ground. Toes lift and back. And then I cross in the back. And then I do the same thing to the back. So now I'm pushing the pinky side of the foot out and keeping that as I draw the inside of the heel back in. So I go out, and in, and I'm pulling with the heel forward, heel forward, heel forward, heel forward. 2. keeping the leg straight the whole time. I'm not doing this. Everything is long as possible, and back. Tendu, pointing the foot. This alone may be enough of a workout. If you're cramping, if your feet hurt, take a break. Maybe you can only handle level 1 today. If you're a fellow bunhead or you have particularly strong feet, we move into the next exercise. Next, we have the releve, or the push up on the balls of the feet. Okay? You might call this calf raise, but this is incredibly important for ankle stiffness, which is one of the big markers of athletic potential, ability to transfer force through the ground into the rest of the body. It also really helps reinforce that front kick, pushing the ball of the foot out here with the toes pulled back. It's the same sort of feeling. And if you work on the releve, your front kick extension will improve. And it just looks like this. I'll show you from a neutral position. All you do, lift up onto the balls of your feet as high as you can go and down. The point is not to hop here. The point is to get as far up onto your ankle as possible. The line from your shin to the top of your foot should be as vertical as you can manage with your anatomy. And every time I'm pushing the top of my foot out, like I'm trying to stretch it, get as far over as possible. So you can get as high up as possible on your balance. So an exercise we might do might look like this. Up, down, up, down, up, bend, down, straight, bend, up, down. This is a great exercise. It will hit your calves, particularly if you're not already hitting them. Let's look at the turn down. Up, 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 bend, down, bend, up, together. After you've pointed and pushed through the foot, now we're going to take things up a notch. The next is the dégagé, to disengage. So now we're going to take that tendu, the pointing of the foot, and we're going to extend that line and keep reaching as the foot comes off the floor, and then we suck it back in like a pair of scissors. Out, out, out. I'm still reaching through the foot, through the leg. This stays straight through the whole thing. I don't try and hold it up. I just give it a little push and back. Push, back with control. Push, back with control. Same thing to the side. I'll push out, foot comes off, still pointing the whole time. Even as I draw back, I'm pointing, I'm pointing, I'm pointing. The toes touch the ground. I'm still extending. The heel hasn't touched. Now the heel has touched down. You always want to be as long as possible for as long as possible. Okay, side, 1, 2, 3, and you can do that to the back as well. 1, 2, 3. Here. Same muscles, just a little bit of dynamism. Now this is the end of level 1, but we can transition into the level 2 exercises with the piqué. We've already disengaged here. Now we're going to piqué, or prick, the floor. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so we piqué, dégagé, we disengage here. As your toe touches the floor, you're going to lift again, just pin pricking the floor like you're popping a balloon. 1, 1, here, down, to the side, piqué, dégagé, piqué, down. A little more muscular, a little bit harder than the dégagé, but an excellent variation of this exercise. The dégagé is just not enough. Now we've reached level 2. Now we will bridge the gap between all of those movements with the rond de jambe. Now rond de jambe looks like this. I point the leg and foot, I move it at its terminal length in the widest circle I can until I reach the front position, and I bring my legs together. Every time, I'm not just slamming my leg in, I'm drawing them together, squeezing them to each other to keep myself right on top of my center of balance. So, rond de jambe, you point the foot. Whether you're turned out or not, that's up to you. You can do it this way. But I will say, turning out will give you more room in the back, right? Your pelvis gets in the way because your hip sockets kind of face this way. They don't face that way, or they probably don't. If they do, you're an exception to the rule. So the turnout will allow you to get more range here because you need to open the hip a little bit to get into that back space. 1, 2. And I'm still reaching through the toes the whole time, as if I told you to draw a perfect circle and you'd win $1 million, right? Out here. And then as I pass through, I'm drawing the heel to where it meets the other, pushing through, always presenting the heel first. Heel, 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 heel comes first, inner thigh, and back. And then we go the opposite way. So you go back, front, trying to really work on the small intrinsic hip muscles here. Now, let's say you're a ballerina badass. Not hard enough. Well, then we take it en l'air, or in the air. So we might do something like this with a plie, a bend in the leg. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up, around, to the back, down, back, around. This one's particularly hard. To the front and down. This is beginning to work the hip flexors, the deep muscles in the glutes that you will need for powerful high kicking. Okay, next, we're going to take one of the exercises from level 1 and crank it up a notch. That is the releve. We've already pressed up onto the balls of our feet, come down here. But all dancers and all martial artists will need to be on one leg at some point. So strengthening the single leg, pushing all the way through, very important. And it's a great strength builder for the front kick, right? You're pushing through the ball of the foot, the same angles here. You do not have to put your leg in passe. You could even do a coupe, or if you don't care at all, you can just leave it, as long as it doesn't pull you off your center of balance. So I like to tuck it behind or somewhere. Right? Here. Here. I continue to reach down through the foot as long as I can. If you feel like you're falling, that's good. That means you're committing to being as vertical as possible. When you are as vertical as possible, the amount it takes to take you off balance is not very much. So if you find yourself really struggling, that's good. I'm resting my hand. Ballerinas will rest 1 or 2 fingers. All it is to give you a reference point, right? Stand on one leg. Now close your eyes. Without the ability to gauge your position in space, it becomes much harder to balance. If I need to balance, I'll look at something and keep my eyes frozen there, and that is my mental anchor point for my balance. Right? If I start looking around, I begin to become unstable. But even with my eyes closed here, I have this point of reference, and I'm using one fingertip on it. It's not enough to support my weight at all, but it is enough to give me my position in space, which makes it easier on my brain to balance. So, challenge yourself. Level 1 is pressing up and down. Level 2, press and hold. Level 3, press, hold, close your eyes. If your goal is not to become a ballerina or ballerino, then switch out the ballet postures, the passes, the port de bras, carriage of the arms, with your specific needs. So if you do not perform in turnout and instead you kick to the head, then use that, right? Press up, chamber the leg, find your balance, and let it happen. Same thing in front here. Press up, balance, down. Up. Whoop. The point is that you fight for the balance, not that you get it perfect. You need to challenge your brain and to throw it off balance so it knows how to correct itself. All right, to close out level 2, we have one of my favorite exercises, the fondue, or to melt. We're going to bend both legs. I lift one off. Here, I'm loading up. As I extend both legs. Now, what this does is not only works the standing leg, balancing while drilling into the floor and using that musculature to stabilize, but then I extend the leg here. Now we're really getting into these muscles on top of the thigh, the ones that are responsible for the strength of the leg below 90 degrees. Fondue, extend, fondue, extend side, fondue, extend back, fondue, extend side, and the other side. You must train both sides, period. Fondue, out, fondue, out, fondue, out, in, out, together. And again, if you want to adapt this for your front kicks, for example, do it in the frontal plane. Or you might have one leg turned out and one in this. So fold, out, fold, out. I'm pushing through the ball of the foot while trying to pull the toes back, just like in a front kick. All you have to do is melt to extend, melt to extend. And the bending can kind of help you set you up for this contracting, folding, expanding outward. Level 3 starts with what I believe to be the most muscularly demanding exercise in ballet, which is the développé. Unlike the fondue, you do not bend the standing leg, but you still extend the other. Oh, God. Okay, here we go. I draw up through the center here, as high as I can, extend out as high as I can, and down. Now, you can develop out and down. This is particularly good for working on pushing the limit of your height. If I develop here and let it go, I can kind of stretch a little bit farther than I can to control it back in and down along the same path. Up to you, player's choice, but if you're a martial artist, I would recommend you practice the retraction. So to the back, draw up, reach, 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 here, and down. You can even do this backwards, here. You're gonna feel it, and if you don't, then maybe you should be my ballet teacher. Now, the important part of the développé is not even just extending the leg out. The important thing is getting that knee as high as possible before you extend, right? You can only kick as far as your knee goes unless something's up with your mobility or your ligaments, in which case, even if you're hypermobile, your knee determines how high the kick goes, right? I can't straighten my leg any farther than this, so wherever my knee is pointing is where the kick is going to go. The higher you can get that knee early, the better extension you'll get. Now, we've worked the hip flexor muscles a lot, the ones required for lifting this leg up from the ground. Hips. Once you get past 90 degrees, you begin moving into the psoas, which is the secret dancer's muscle that is the primary mover of the leg above 90 degrees. So those ballerinas that can do a 12 o'clock extension, they have incredible strength in the psoas. The psoas starts in your low back, wraps underneath your pelvis onto the thigh. So after you lift this leg up, and you can try this yourself, once you get past 90, you'll feel some of the muscles here kind of turn off. And that's because the one that is closest to your spine is taking over. So the higher you can get that leg, the better. The more you can train the psoas, the better you'll be, the more control you'll have to get that ballerina kind of feeling. Now, this is particularly hard at the very end. We've used all these muscles close to the spine to draw ourselves up, but the farther we get out, the leverage on the spine, on the hip increases. And so finishing that last few degrees is going to feel extremely muscular. That's good, because that's the part of the kick that you want to emphasize, right? We do not need to flex every muscle to get the leg up. Not only do you not need to, but you shouldn't, because you will be slower and less effective, right? We only need to really harden the body in the initial burst to drive the knee up, but then the knee and leg just sail through the air until we finish the movement, right? When you throw a punch, you don't all the way through, because you get beaten 5 or 6 times before you even got there. You need to be relaxed. You explode, relax, 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 and only towards the end do you harden, right? Same thing here. You want to try and stay relaxed. I know that's hilarious if you've tried this already. Try and stay relaxed here until you have to. It's only here that I really feel the muscle. Here, I feel pretty comfortable. I can do this all I want. It's when that leverage really increases towards the end that I feel those muscles right in here activating. Oh my God. Ugh. If you're like me and you're already cramping and wishing you never started this video, try making it easier on yourself with a strap. You can use your hand to support your leg underneath here to kind of help train that end range, or you can stick a strap to your foot here and practice this way. This is a little less muscular and works more on the mobility and flexibility of those end positions. So very good thing to ramp up into the développé, or to do after you've already burned out your hip flexors like this guy. Now, if that's still too difficult, which probably should be the case for most people, you can do this from the ground. So grab your strap, maybe the tie of your bathrobe, anything you can get around your foot here, like so. So I'm going to draw the knee as high as possible, really try and touch it to my chest if I can. Get the strap maybe a little bit below the ball of your foot in the stirrup here, and then extend. And I'm not pulling this as hard as I am pushing the leg into the last few inches of this here. This can also be done to the side by rolling over here. Here, again, draw the knee up, try and fold it against yourself here, and extend. Bend and extend. Fondue on the ground, if you will. Another way to train the psoas, particularly to isolate it just above the 90-degree mark relative to your spine, is to sit in a chair. And from here, I'm going to keep myself as vertical as possible and lift that knee as high as I can and back down. It's unlikely that you will move very far. I've been working on my hip flexors and psoas for a very long time. And this is a challenge for me because I am not trying to bring my head to my knee to make it appear like it's getting higher. So lift it as high as you can while keeping your back straight and your abs are on. Here and down, here and down. Sit and do little marches with a pause. I march and down, up and down, as high as possible, down, up, down. Okay, now I don't want to do this. This is, again, doing it for the looks. I got my knees up, right? So it technically counts. No, this is about slow control of small muscles. It will take time, it will take training. And the progress you make will be very tiny in degrees. But if you practice doing this more and more, you will gain resilience the farther up your knee travels, which gives you higher kicks. This is super accessible, and even if you don't do the other exercises, the développé, the fondus, this is a must-do, in my opinion, if you wish to kick above hip level. All right, second to last movement. If you've been following along, I'm sorry for both of us. Now we're going to use a move from earlier with a twist. We've already done our piqué, our pricking of the floor. 1, 2, down. Now we're going to take that into a balance. So we are going to dégager, detach our leg from the ground. We are going to step onto the straight leg. So I don't bend this at all. This is a peg that I press up onto and I transfer the weight. This teaches two things. One, transferring your weight onto a straight leg that's pushing through the ground. The second is to really test your balance. If you try this, I would bet almost certainly that you are going to fall backwards. Piqué, up and back, because you don't want to commit. Okay? Again, the balance point is very fine. A few degrees off to either side, and you're going over. That's the point. The point isn't to pull yourself on. The point is to send it and go for it. Piqué. And you fall off. And that tells me my weight was too much on my right side. So I adjust a little bit. Good. I went straight forward. Better. Now I just need to commit a little less. If you hold yourself back, if you convince yourself you cannot do it, you cannot balance, you're right. Okay, so piqué, up. And I like to extend my arms to really give myself some extra balance and to reinforce that feeling of pushing out in all directions, right? The more I crumple, the more weak points and the more serpentine the force has to go through my body to keep myself rigid. So if I'm as tall as possible here, extended, works a lot better. So you have to go for it. All right? I'm going to piqué here. Not bad. Another one. Piqué. Not enough commitment. Piqué. A little better. Is this a direct one-to-one for martial arts? Not necessarily. But if you do spinning kicks, if you do any kind of step and you press up like a Muay Thai fighter on that leg, this is going to come in handy. The point is to eventually turn. Whoop. Our last exercise is the grand battement. Okay? We've dégagé, disengaged our foot at a low level, just kind of articulating through the foot. This time we are going for maximum leg height. Now, I said maximum leg height. Just like with the psoas exercises, I do not mean you bring your head and upper body towards the leg, that does not count. Okay? You look stupid and you're not training what you want. Okay? So, again, you may want a parallel, neutral alignment, feet under your shoulders. But the idea here is dynamic flexibility, right? Not what we can eke out and control, but what we can throw into the air with a straight leg, with a straight spine. These are necessary. So I can kick much higher than I can lift my leg and crank it out with the musculature. I can kick to the head. In fact, I kicked Bob in the head multiple times, as you saw, without a warm-up. Now, there's a difference between flexibility, mobility, and dynamic flexibility. Flexibility is you can do the splits on the ground, passive. You can't hold the splits in a jump, but you can get yourself into that position. That doesn't serve us. That just tells you your maximum range. But unless you can control that range, unless you can exert strength through that range, then it doesn't matter if you can do the splits. So mobility is the ability to control your body in certain positions, right? Strength through range of motion and flexibility. Dynamic flexibility is ballistic stretching, right? I am not sticking my leg out and holding it like Neo from the Matrix. I am throwing it up and letting it come back down. So the ballet version would look something like this. Again, I'm trying to keep my hips level. They will rise a little bit, particularly to the back, just because you're going to run into the back of your own pelvis. But I am trying to avoid tilting here. I want to remain as vertical as possible. Now, in ballet, this is for aesthetics and really, really fine-tuned balance. Many martial artists will bend to get that leg high up. But it takes longer, and you have to return to your center of gravity. The less you have to commit to that, the better off you are, the faster your technique is, the more power you can exert through your own musculature instead of using momentum. Ultimately, you see a lot of Kyokushin fighters fight like this, right? They don't tilt themselves to get the head kick like the WKF people do. Instead, they stay very vertical and kick almost up. But I barely have to move to shift my weight. It's also much harder to see it coming. If I throw my head and shoulders, you can expect the other end of me to come up. But if I'm up here and I'm moving within my center, it's right there. You know what else is right there? The knees to the head, right? I don't have to bend myself or bring the head down. I can meet the head where it is. And in Kyokushin in particular, this is super powerful. You're in so close. You don't have the range to really extend. You have to go straight up as close to yourself as possible. This is a superpower. Less telegraph, more centered, able to return to your stance and continue firing. Do not cheat. You will be beaten by others who take the time to do it correctly. You can take your fighting stance and you throw up with a straight leg here. And again, you do both sides. I would start with your weaker side and build that side up until you can get the... You probably can see that my left leg is much more flexible. I'm going to just shoot straight up. 1. So let's look at the height here. 1, 2, 3. I'm about here. Level with my own eyebrows. Let's try the left. 1, 2, 3. I'm at my own head. So even I, with all of the training I've done, all of the effort to become completely even ambidextrous, I'm not quite there yet. And you're going to have imbalances. Maybe you have injuries, or your skeleton is asymmetrical, which is true for probably everyone. Do your best. Try and keep them even. You just don't want to get so loose on this side and so tight on this side, you end up kind of walking strange or getting an injury later down the line because of that strength imbalance. Okay, so use this for whatever you want. So you're not going in turnout, but you're turned over your side kicks. Okay, that is very similar to the arabesque. Okay, so you take your foot position, either you're bladed or not, and you throw up here. Like that. Now, as an added bonus, I'll give you a couple stretches and mobility drills to help you not only get into these positions, but after you've worked the muscles to work on that flexibility, really reinforce the range of motion, and open up the hips after we've really torqued them and worked them. Okay, so one of my favorites is the figure four. Now, my front leg is bent. That's sort of it's a little bit greater than 90 degrees, but that's the general gist. And then my back leg is behind me. Now, this can be in whatever position you feel is most comfortable. Ideally, you don't want to have this hip lifted off the ground. You want it as close as you can. You should feel it here in the front of the back leg and in the back of the front leg. Okay, so here, if you can't get into this position comfortably, you can do what I do sometimes and use some yoga blocks to really lift that torso up on top of the pelvis, right? I don't want to sink over to this side. That doesn't really help me. Lengthen spine. I'm trying to stay over my center. I'm technically over a little bit, but again, it's the principle. Really feel this here. And here I can come forward and stretch the bottom hip on the back side more. Get into the hamstring here. I can move away here and lengthen through here. Really stretch those hip flexor muscles that we've been working. You can also transition into a pigeon pose. If you've got your chair from the psoas exercises before, you can just bring one leg up on to the chair and just kind of put a little bit of your weight into it like you're gonna stand on it. You're not, but you want to activate the muscles that hold you close here. So if I give myself the idea that I'm gonna get up and I just push a little bit through here, I can work on this end range. You can also do this from standing. So here, I can sink this down and work on the mobility. I have this leg for support, but I don't need it. I just want my tissues pushing into the folds, the creases of the hip and knee. I'm pasting my hamstrings onto the calf, my abdomen and obliques onto the hip flexors, and just trying to make myself as small as possible. If you push in through here like you're doing little pulses, you'll activate these muscles in the contracted state. Now, of course, we can use the tools from earlier, like the strap or our own hands, to do a modified stretch where instead of trying to work the musculature, we just try and get a little bit of a stretch, whatever that is. Okay, and if your leg's a little bent, that's fine. It's really just as long as you feel the stretch in the right place, it doesn't matter, okay? We're not ballerinas. We're not in a competition. So just do what you are capable of doing. And if it's difficult, if you are pushing your limits, then that's good. That's where you should be. That is appropriate. I can kick to the head easily, but this is difficult for me. All right, so you may be more passively flexible. You may be more dynamically flexible. You may be tight as hell and unable to do any of it. Okay, so start where you're at, do it right, and you will eventually get there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.